Fear only shows up when something is important. If we didn't care, we wouldn't feel afraid. That nervous tension before speaking in front of a crowd, the unease before asking for an opportunity, the hesitation before making a bold decision, these are not signs of weakness. They are signals that what we are about to do matters deeply to us. Fear is a reflection of value, not inadequacy. When we step back and ask ourselves why we feel afraid, the answer is rarely about the fear itself. It's about the possibility of losing something meaningful, of being judged in a way that hurts, of failing at something we want to succeed in. Fear is an indicator of significance. It tells us this is worth it. When we understand that, fear becomes less of an enemy and more of a reminder that we are on the right path. Confidence begins not with erasing fear, but with understanding why we are willing to face it. People often mistake confidence as the absence of doubt, but true confidence comes from being anchored in a reason that's bigger than the fear. It is born when we shift our focus from what could go wrong to why it's worth trying anyway. That shift transforms hesitation into determination. Imagine a parent who speaks up at a school meeting, even though public speaking terrifies them. They don't do it because they suddenly became fearless overnight. They do it because their child matters more than their fear. The why behind the action pulls them forward, giving them courage they might not have found otherwise. When we connect to why something matters, we give ourselves permission to act imperfectly. Fear often whispers, "What if you're not ready?" But when we remember our purpose, we realize readiness is less important than showing up. The clarity of why frees us from the illusion that everything must be perfect before we begin. Our sense of purpose also shifts how we interpret fear. Instead of seeing it as a signal to retreat, we see it as confirmation that we're pursuing something worthwhile. A meaningful why turns fear from a stop sign into a green light. We still feel the nerves, but they now serve as proof that we're growing into something bigger than we were yesterday. Think of pioneers, leaders, and changemakers. Every single one of them felt fear. The difference is their commitment to why outweighed the comfort of staying safe. They didn't eliminate fear, they carried it with them, fueled by the vision of what could be achieved if they stepped forward. Their confidence was born from alignment, not bravado. Confidence, then, is less about technique and more about conviction. It's the quiet assurance that what we are doing matters enough to risk discomfort. When our why is clear, our voice steadies, our presence strengthens, and our courage grows, not because the fear has disappeared, because we now see it as part of the journey rather than the barrier. Fear has a way of showing up at the threshold of our biggest opportunities. It arrives not when we are idle, but when we are about to take a step that stretches us beyond what we know. That trembling in the stomach, the racing heartbeat, the hesitation in our thoughts, they are not signals of weakness. They are signs we are moving towards something that matters. When we think of fear as the enemy, we spend our energy fighting it or avoiding it. But fear is not a wall, it is a compass. It points us toward the places where growth, discovery, and impact are possible. If something scares us, it usually means it has the power to change us. The presence of fear is often proof that we are not wasting our time. Fear also reveals the gap between who we are and who we could become. If we never felt fear, it would mean we were staying in the safety of the familiar, never daring to reach for more. The discomfort is simply our mind acknowledging that we are stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is where transformation lies. Consider the first time someone takes a risk in their career or decides to speak up when silence would be easier. The fear they feel is not telling them to stop, it's telling them they are stretching their capacity. It is a signal that they are standing in a moment that has weight, a moment that could redefine how they see themselves. The mistake many make is waiting for fear to go away before acting. But fear doesn't vanish at the start, it softens only after we move through it. The act of stepping forward, despite its presence, teaches us that fear was not a barrier but a teacher. Each time we face it, we gather evidence that we can survive the discomfort, and more importantly, that we can thrive on the other side of it. In this way, fear becomes fuel. It heightens our awareness, sharpens our focus, and pushes us to prepare more carefully. A performer with no nerves before stepping on stage is either unprepared or uninspired. But the one who feels fear knows they are stepping into something that matters to them, and that feeling keeps them present, alert, and alive. Fear also keeps us humble. It reminds us that what we're doing is not guaranteed, that success requires effort and intention. Without fear, we risk arrogance. With fear, we approach challenges with respect, and in doing so, we give ourselves the best chance to rise to the occasion. So when fear shows up, it is not a signal to retreat, but a reminder that we are in the right place. It is evidence that the step ahead carries meaning, that the choice in front of us has weight, and that the path we are walking has the potential to shape who we are becoming. Confidence is often imagined as a sudden transformation, a dramatic leap from doubt to certainty. But in reality, it rarely works that way. Confidence is not built in grand gestures, it is forged in the quiet, repeated actions we take each day. It grows not in one giant step, but in the accumulation of small wins that slowly reshape how we see ourselves. Every small win is a piece of evidence. It tells us you are capable. When we commit to tiny, consistent actions, whether it's speaking up once in a meeting, practicing a new skill for 10 minutes a day, or simply showing up when it would be easier to hide, we collect proof that we can handle more than we think. Over time, this proof becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. The power of small wins lies in their accessibility. A huge goal can feel overwhelming, but a small step feels possible. And once we take that step, momentum builds. Each step makes the next one easier, creating a cycle of progress. It is this cycle, repeated again and again, that leads to the big shifts we desire. Think of someone learning to run a marathon. They don't start with 26 miles. They start with 1, then 2, then 3. Each small run is a victory that builds both physical ability and mental belief. By the time they reach the full distance, confidence has already been built through the consistent evidence of prior wins. Small wins also reshape our identity. Every time we follow through on a small commitment, we reinforce the story we tell ourselves. I am someone who shows up. I am someone who keeps going. That new identity becomes more powerful than fear because our actions have given us proof to believe it. These small steps also reduce the fear of failure. When we focus only on the big leap, failure feels catastrophic. But when we measure progress by small wins, each setback is just one moment in a larger pattern of growth. The weight of failure diminishes and the courage to keep going increases. Confidence born from small wins is more sustainable than the illusion of sudden success. It is rooted in practice, not luck. It does not crumble at the first sign of difficulty because it has been reinforced over time, brick by brick. Each small win becomes part of a solid foundation that no single challenge can shake. In this way, the secret of building confidence is not to wait for one defining moment, but to create a series of small defining moments. Each step forward, no matter how small, compounds into something far greater than the sum of its parts. We are often taught to hide our uncertainty, to put on a mask of confidence even when we don't feel it. But true strength is not pretending to have all the answers. It is the courage to admit when we don't. Vulnerability is the moment we say, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. That admission is not weakness. It is the starting point of growth and connection. When we embrace vulnerability, we invite trust. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with honesty. A leader who admits they don't have all the answers builds more loyalty than one who pretends they do. Vulnerability makes space for others to step in, contribute, and feel valued. It creates an environment where collaboration thrives because everyone knows they are not expected to be flawless. Admitting uncertainty also opens the door to learning. If we act as though we already know everything, we close ourselves off from new ideas, feedback, and possibilities. Vulnerability, on the other hand, says, I am open to being taught, I am open to being changed. That openness accelerates growth in ways that rigid certainty never can. Consider someone who steps onto a stage and begins with, I'm nervous, but I care about this too much not to share it. That vulnerability doesn't diminish their credibility, it enhances it. The audience leans in because they see themselves in that moment of honesty. Vulnerability breaks down the invisible walls between people and builds a bridge of shared humanity. The fear of vulnerability often comes from the belief that it will expose us to judgment. But what it actually does is strip away pretense and reveal authenticity. And authenticity is magnetic. People are drawn to those who show up as they are, rather than those who hide behind carefully constructed facades. Vulnerability also transforms relationships. When we allow ourselves to be seen as imperfect, we give others permission to do the same. That mutual openness builds bonds that are deeper and more resilient than relationships built on performance or image. Vulnerability becomes the foundation of trust, and trust is the foundation of strength. It is important to remember that vulnerability does not mean oversharing or abandoning boundaries. It means showing up with honesty even when it feels uncomfortable. It means letting go of the need to appear invincible and choosing instead to be real. In doing so, we create a space where courage is not about armor but about openness. Through vulnerability, we find a paradoxical truth. The more willing we are to be seen as uncertain, the more others see us as strong. It is not the elimination of doubt that defines authentic confidence, but the willingness to carry doubt into the light and keep moving forward anyway. Failure is often treated as the end of the story, a final verdict on our abilities or worth. But failure is not a wall, it is a mirror. It reflects back information about what worked, what didn't, and what can be improved. When we see failure as feedback, we strip it of its power to define us and instead use it as a tool to refine us. Every attempt produces data. A missed opportunity teaches us where we need more preparation. A rejected idea shows us how to communicate more clearly. A project that falls short reveals the gaps we couldn't see before. None of these outcomes mean we are incapable, they simply mean we are in the process of learning. Reframing failure also removes the shame that often comes with it. Shame tells us, you are a failure. Feedback tells us, you are still learning. That shift is critical because it separates who we are from what happened. It allows us to remain whole while examining the results objectively, without letting them define our identity. Think of a scientist running experiments. If the first test doesn't produce the expected result, it isn't considered a defeat, it's information. Each outcome, successful or not, brings the scientist closer to discovery. When we approach our own lives with the same mindset, failure stops being personal and starts being practical. The truth is, the most successful people are not those who avoided failure, but those who learned to interpret it differently. They did not see rejection or setbacks as proof they should stop, but as data pointing them toward a better path. Their resilience came not from avoiding mistakes, but from extracting value from them. Failure also builds humility and resilience. Each time we fall short and rise again, we strengthen our capacity to endure. Confidence does not come from an unbroken record of success. It comes from knowing that failure cannot break us. Feedback equips us to face the next challenge with more wisdom than we had before. When we reframe failure, we also reduce the fear of trying. If every outcome is either success or feedback, then there is no true loss. We either achieve what we set out to do, or we gain knowledge that makes the next attempt stronger. This mindset frees us to take risks without being paralyzed by the possibility of defeat. By choosing to see failure as feedback, we transform setbacks into stepping stones. Each one becomes a source of insight that moves us closer to growth, clarity, and eventual success. Instead of being proof that we should stop, failure becomes proof that we are in motion, experimenting, and evolving. No one builds lasting confidence alone. Even the strongest among us have moments when doubt takes over, when fear feels louder than possibility. In those moments, what often makes the difference is not our own inner voice, but the voices around us. A circle of belief, a group of people who see our potential even when we can't, is one of the most powerful forces in shaping who we become. When self-doubt clouds our vision, others can see clearly. They remind us of our strengths when we've forgotten them. They hold up a mirror that reflects not just who we are now, but who we are capable of becoming. Their belief doesn't erase our fear, but it steadies us long enough to take the next step. The influence of those we surround ourselves with cannot be overstated. If we are constantly in the company of people who only point out our flaws, our confidence shrinks. But when we are surrounded by people who encourage us, challenge us, and hold us accountable to our best selves, our confidence grows in ways we could not achieve alone. Consider an athlete with a coach who believes in their ability to win, even after a string of losses. The coach's belief is not blind. It is grounded in seeing potential, in recognizing the effort, and in pushing the athlete to rise again. That external confidence becomes fuel until the athlete can rebuild their own. A circle of belief also protects us from isolation. Fear and failure can feel overwhelming when we face them alone, but with support, they become manageable. Knowing someone else is in our corner gives us courage to keep going when quitting feels easier. We borrow their belief until it becomes our own. It is equally important that this circle is intentional. Not everyone qualifies to be in it. The voices we let close to us must be voices of truth, encouragement, and accountability. They are not people who flatter us, but people who see us fully and still choose to believe in us. Their honesty strengthens us, and their faith sustains us. Over time, the belief of others begins to reshape our identity. We start to internalize the vision they hold for us until it becomes our own. What once felt impossible begins to feel achievable, not because fear disappears, but because we now carry with us the confidence that we are not walking alone. A circle of belief reminds us that confidence is not just an individual pursuit, but a collective one. Our courage multiplies in the presence of those who see us clearly, believe in us deeply, and remind us of our potential when our own sight is blurred. Courage is not something we summon only in grand, defining moments. It is something we practice in the small, ordinary choices of daily life. Each time we speak when silence feels safer, each time we take a step into the unknown, each time we choose to act instead of hesitate, we are exercising courage. Over time, these small acts compound into confidence that feels natural rather than forced. The mistake many make is believing that confidence must come first and action will follow. In truth, the order is reversed. Action precedes confidence. By practicing courage daily, even in the smallest of ways, we train ourselves to move forward despite fear, and in doing so, we prove to ourselves that fear does not have the final say. Courage does not require the absence of nerves or uncertainty. It requires only the willingness to carry them with us as we move forward. A trembling voice is still a voice. Shaky hands can still hold the pen. The act of doing, even imperfectly, is what turns fear into evidence of growth rather than proof of limitation. Think of someone who commits to speaking up once in every meeting. The first time, their voice shakes. The second time, they still feel nervous. But by the 10th time, what was once terrifying has become natural. That transformation did not happen by waiting for fear to disappear. It happened because courage was practiced consistently until fear lost its grip. Daily courage also builds resilience. Each time we step through fear, we remind ourselves that discomfort is survivable. We begin to see fear not as a threat, but as a companion that signals growth. With repetition, we no longer panic when fear arrives because we have built the habit of moving forward in its presence. Practicing courage daily also changes how we see ourselves. Every small act of bravery becomes a piece of evidence that we are capable. Those pieces add up, rewriting our identity from someone who avoids risk to someone who faces challenges. Confidence grows not from the absence of fear, but from repeated proof that we can act while afraid. This practice extends to every part of life. Conversations, decisions, odds, opportunities, and relationships. The more often we choose courage in the small moments, the more prepared we are when larger moments of fear arrive. By then, courage is not an exception but a habit, and fear has far less power to hold us back. Confidence, then, is not a sudden arrival but the natural byproduct of practicing courage daily. Every choice to step forward while afraid is a deposit in the bank of self-belief. Building strength one action at a time, you said, turn fear into fuel, channel the energy of fear into preparation, growth, resilience. Expend it in 8 paragraphs and don't add any ending sentence. ChatGPT said fear is often experienced as a weight, something that holds us down and keeps us from moving forward. But fear is also energy, and energy can be redirected. The same adrenaline that makes our palms sweat and our hearts race can be harnessed to sharpen our focus, push us to prepare more deeply, and give us the drive to rise to the challenge in front of us. When we learn to see fear not as an anchor but as fuel, it changes the way we respond to it. Instead of resisting it, we can channel it. Fear tells us that something matters, and if it matters, it deserves our full attention. That urgency can be used to elevate our preparation, to push us to rehearse, to practice, to learn, and to strengthen ourselves in ways we might not if we felt no fear at all. Fear can also become a catalyst for growth. Each time it shows up, it highlights an area where we have the opportunity to expand. Fear says, here is a place where you can stretch, where you can discover more of who you are. When we embrace it as part of the process, it becomes less of a signal to retreat and more of an invitation to grow. Consider a musician about to perform on stage. The fear they feel before stepping into the spotlight is the same energy that fuels their performance. Without fear, the performance risks being flat or mechanical. With fear channeled into focus and passion, the performance comes alive. The very thing that once felt like a weakness becomes a source of power. Fear also builds resilience when we learn to use it. Each time we act despite it, we train ourselves to face future challenges with greater strength. The body and mind remember, we have been here before, we felt afraid, and we still moved forward. That memory becomes part of our foundation, proof that fear can be carried without breaking us. Channeling fear into fuel also shifts our perspective on discomfort. Instead of trying to get rid of it, we learn to ride its energy. The racing heartbeat, the butterflies, the tension, all become signals that we are alive, engaged, and invested. That energy can be directed into action rather than avoidance, into presence rather than paralysis. Fear even pushes us toward creativity. The pressure it creates forces us to think differently, to innovate, to search for solutions we might not have considered in comfort. Many breakthroughs are born not from calm certainty, but from the urgency that fear ignites. When we turn fear into fuel, we no longer wait for it to disappear before we act. We embrace it, redirect it, and allow it to power our preparation, our growth, and our resilience. Fear becomes not the reason we stop, but the very reason we push harder, go deeper, and rise higher.